Hi everyone, I'm Jessica and welcome back to the Pawsome Stamps YouTube channel. I'm very excited to be a part of the video design team here. So one of the ones I'm going to be using today is the cup of tea set, and this has some really cute little images. I'll be using the teacup stack image there and also one of the sentiments. The other one I'm using is Under the Sea stamp set and the dies for it. So this one does have the dies. So the technique that I'm kind of sharing today is just the technique of combining stamp sets that you may not combine otherwise. So they might be slightly different in theme, but you can make some really cute creative cards by combining and mixing and matching your stamp sets. This is going to be a mini Slimline card. So when folded, this mini Slimline card will measure 3.5 by 6 inches. So that makes the card base 7 by 6 inches. The card panel that I'm going to be stamping on is 3 inches by 5.5 inches. I'll also put the measurements for this card down in the description box. That way they are there for you if you'd like them. So I chose these two sets because I really like that stack of teacups. I like the plant that was kind of growing out of these stacked teacups, and I thought that it would go well with an underwater scene. My husband and I used to have a fish tank a while back, and we really enjoyed it, and it was fun to see all the different themed things that you could put inside for your little fish to kind of swim around. So that was kind of the inspiration for this. So the Under the Sea stamp set has this really cute little walkway. It's like little round rocks that you can lead up to the doors of the teapots. I decided to use that as the substrate for my little fish tank. So I'm going to do some repetitive stamping with this and just line it around on the bottom below that stack of teacups. I am stamping all of my images with alcohol-friendly ink, because I will be doing some Copic coloring. A stamp platform like the Misty does come in handy for this, especially with the little stamps and repetitive stamping. That way you can make sure you get some really crisp lines. But if you do make any mistakes, or if there is any wide open areas that maybe the stamp didn't cover well enough, don't worry. There are plenty of little images on these stamp sets to kind of cover up those spaces. The cardstock I'm using today to color on is 110 pound. This is Nina Solar White. It's also the same cardstock that I used for the card base. Now I don't normally color on 110 pound weighted cardstock just because I find that 80 pound is a little easier to get a smooth blend, especially when you're using Copic markers or alcohol markers. But for today, I wanted more of a high contrasted blending. So I'm using some markers that don't really necessarily blend well together, but with the 110 pound cardstock, I can kind of force them together and put a lot of ink down to get a more watercolor look. You'll see this a little bit more in like the teacups that have a larger surface area. So I do keep my darker colors to the edges and the shadows, and then color out a little bit from those corners and depths, and then blend in with the lighter color. So I normally do darker color first and then lighter color. If I do have to, I can always go back with a medium color or that darker colored marker to get a more transitional blend. I do have a Copic colored chart here that I can put on the screen. If you'd like to take a screenshot, you can have the list of Copic markers that I used. This card has a color combination of blue, teal, orange, pink, black, and green. So I'm going to use some of those fish that I stamped to carry out that orange and blue colors all the way to the top of the card. Since the teacups, I didn't color any of those with that bright blue, I'll use that blue color on the ground level. So I'll just use that B29 marker and color in between all of those little ovals. This does take a bit of time, but it is well worth it and an easy way to ground everything for a simple scene. To fill in my background area, I use that silhouette fish stamp, the School of Fish one. And that's going to match one of the teacups with a light teal color. I'm going to use a really good ink and the Misty again to stamp that, and really be careful with lining up those images. I'm going to stamp them several times in a cluster to create a larger school of fish. This is a cool stamp just because it is very well proportioned, so you can flip it over and have the fish going a different way. So very versatile. Now this is something that you could do beforehand, before you do all that Copic coloring. And same with the sentiment too. You could go ahead and stamp the silhouetted fish, all your background elements, including the sentiment, before you even Copic color. For the sentiments, I'm using one of the sentiments from the Cup of Tea stamp set. And this one has a really pretty script that says, "Just because I miss you." And the top one that says, "Sending you oceans of love," is of course from the Under the Sea stamp set. I did stamp the sentiments with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. That's my favorite go-to ink for stamping sentiments. It is a very good crisp black ink, especially if you have a tendency to stamp your sentiments at the very end after making your card, like I have a tendency to do. I already went ahead and I die cut all of the images that I needed, all that grass and the fishes. And I'm going to place those around my scene here. I did go ahead and cover up the door on that bottom orange teacup, just because I thought placing the plants kind of in front of it created a bit more depth to this scene. I'll make a cluster of the rest of the plants off to the right hand side, and then stagger the fishes throughout the sentiments and the silhouetted fish. That way I get a good proportion of colors. So I'm bringing that orange and bright blue colors all the way to the top of the card. Now, one of my favorite go-to embellishments is sequins. It's so easy to use and it can bring a lot of impact to your projects. The one I have that I'm using here is a Pawsome Stamps sequin pack, which is blue skies. Again, this is the inspiration for using that bright blue color, which I absolutely love. And these sequins have just a good variety of different colors in them. There's some that have a bit more purplish tone, there's a lighter blue, and there's a couple different sizes. So it's a really good mix. I'm going to use a few of those in different sizes and in different tones and place those on the bottom in that ground level to add just a bit more texture. I also went in with a jelly roll pen. I didn't do this on camera. I did this after the fact, but I just added a few more white dots throughout that ground level to give it a bit more contrast and fill in some more bare areas. So I absolutely adore this. I thought it was just a lot of fun and I loved how this card turned out, mixing those two stamp sets. And it really turned out to be a whimsical card, I think. So I hope that you take this as some inspiration and mix up a few of your stamp sets and see what happens and just get a little creative with it. All right, you guys, that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.